Research shows that 87% of women give clear warning signs before they cheat, but 92% of men completely miss them. I'm a woman, and I'm about to break the code of silence. These 4 signs appear in almost every case of female infidelity, but they're so subtle that men dismiss them as just stress or going through a phase. If you're seeing these signs right now, you have maybe weeks before she makes her move. Before we dive deep into this, I need you to do something important. Hit that like button right now. This information could save someone's relationship, and the algorithm needs to know this matters. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because we're going to be exploring the psychology of relationships in ways most people are afraid to discuss. And here's something I'm genuinely curious about. Drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to know where men around the world are tuning in from, because this isn't just an American phenomenon. These patterns are universal, crossing cultures and continents. Sign 1, her attention shifts, but she pretends it hasn't. The first sign is so subtle that most men don't even register it as a problem. Yesterday she was engaged, present, genuinely interested in your thoughts and stories. Today, she's physically there, but emotionally absent. You're talking, but she's not really listening. You make a joke that used to make her laugh, and now you get a polite smile at best. When you confront her about this change, she deflects. You're being paranoid. I'm just tired. Work has been crazy. You're overthinking everything. But trust me, this isn't random exhaustion or stress. This is emotional drift, and it's one of the most dangerous things that can happen in a relationship. Here's what's really happening inside her mind. Her attention, which used to be naturally drawn to you, is being pulled elsewhere. Not necessarily to another person initially, but away from the relationship dynamic that once satisfied her. She's becoming emotionally unavailable, not because she's decided to hurt you, but because something else is capturing the mental and emotional energy she used to direct toward you. The psychology behind this is fascinating and terrifying. Human beings have limited emotional bandwidth. We can only deeply invest in so many relationships, so many priorities, so many sources of fulfillment at once. When something new enters a woman's life that provides emotional stimulation, excitement, or validation that she feels is missing from her primary relationship, her brain begins to reallocate resources. If you've ever felt like she's physically present but emotionally absent, like she's looking at you but not really seeing you, that's not your imagination playing tricks on you. The specific behaviors you need to watch for are subtle but consistent. She stops asking follow-up questions when you tell her about your day. Her responses become shorter, less engaged, more automatic. The spontaneous texts throughout the day, the ones that used to say, thinking of you, or share random thoughts, they slow down and eventually stop. When you're together, she seems distracted, not obviously checking her phone or looking around the room, but there's a quality of presence that's missing. It's like she's operating on autopilot, going through the motions of being in a relationship without the genuine emotional investment that used to drive those interactions. The dangerous part is that this stage is often reversible if both partners recognize what's happening and take action. But most couples don't, because the change feels so normal, so explainable, so temporary. They think it will resolve itself once work slows down, once stress decreases, once life gets back to normal. But emotional drift doesn't reverse itself, it accelerates. Sign 2, she starts hiding the small stuff. This is where things get more serious, and it's where most men start to feel something is genuinely wrong, even if they can't put their finger on what it is. Infidelity doesn't begin with secret hotel meetings or hidden rendezvous. It begins when she stops sharing the mundane details of her daily life. Her phone, which used to be casually accessible, suddenly has new passwords. She takes it with her everywhere now, to the bathroom, to the shower, to bed. When it buzzes, she checks it immediately, but if you glance over, she angles it away from your view. This isn't necessarily because she's exchanging inappropriate messages, but because she's creating boundaries around communications you used to be privy to, The transparency that healthy relationships require starts to disappear. She used to tell you about the weird conversation with her coworker, the frustrating interaction with her boss, the funny thing that happened on her lunch break. Now, when you ask about her day, you get surface-level responses. Fine, busy, nothing interesting happened. But here's what she's not telling you. Plenty interesting is happening. She's just not sharing it with you anymore. Those detailed stories, those little frustrations and victories, those moments of connection through shared experience. She's having those conversations with someone else now. This is what psychologists call compartmentalization, and it's a crucial step in the process of emotional infidelity. She's not necessarily doing anything she would define as cheating yet, but she's creating separate spaces in her life, one that includes you and one that doesn't, and the space that doesn't include you is growing. The compartmentalization serves multiple psychological functions. First, it protects the new relationship or emotional connection from scrutiny. If she doesn't talk about certain people or activities with you, then you can't ask probing questions or express concerns. Second, it allows her to avoid cognitive dissonance. The mental discomfort that comes from knowing her behavior might not align with her values or commitments. She's not just being private, she's mentally constructing separate worlds, and you're being excluded from the one that's becoming more important to her. The specific behaviors manifest in ways that feel subtle, but are actually quite dramatic when you add them up. She deletes text message conversations more frequently. She takes calls in private that she used to take openly. She becomes vague about social plans, work events, or casual interactions that she used to describe in detail. New people enter her stories without context. She mentions names you've never heard before, as if you should know who they are. When you ask for clarification, she seems annoyed or dismissive. Just someone from work. You don't know them. It's not important. Most men notice this change, but don't know how to address it without seeming controlling or paranoid. They sense the shift in transparency, but can't point to anything concrete that proves wrongdoing. This puts them in an impossible position. They know something is wrong, but confronting it makes them look insecure or distrustful. Sign 3, her fights suddenly feel scripted. This is where the psychological manipulation begins, often without her even realizing she's doing it. She starts picking fights that feel different from normal relationship conflicts. These aren't genuine disagreements about real issues. These are manufactured conflicts designed to serve a psychological purpose, justifying her emotional distance and creating reasons to be upset with you. The fights seem to come out of nowhere and escalate quickly over things that never bothered her before. You leave a dish in the sink that you've left there hundreds of times before, but suddenly it's a major issue about respect and consideration. You use a certain tone of voice that's never been a problem, but now it's evidence that you don't care about her feelings. What makes these arguments feel scripted is the disproportionate emotional response and the way she seems almost prepared for them. It's like she's been mentally rehearsing these complaints, building up resentment over minor issues, and waiting for the right moment to unleash it. Here's what's really happening psychologically. She's experiencing cognitive dissonance. Deep down, she knows that her emotional investment is shifting away from your relationship, and that knowledge conflicts with her self-image as a loyal, committed partner. To resolve this internal conflict, her mind needs reasons to justify her changing feelings. Every small annoyance becomes evidence that the relationship isn't working. Every minor oversight becomes proof that you don't really care about her. Every moment of imperfection becomes justification for her emotional withdrawal. She's not consciously constructing this narrative, but her subconscious mind is working overtime to create a story that makes her the victim rather than the person who's drifting away. The most insidious part of this process is how convincing it becomes, even to her. What starts as subconscious justification gradually becomes her genuine perception of the relationship. She begins to truly believe that you're inconsiderate, that you don't listen to her, that you don't appreciate her. that the relationship has fundamental problems that can't be resolved. Rehook. When every argument feels like she's reading from a script she's already written, it's because she's building a case against you in her mind. The specific pattern of these fights follows a predictable structure. They start with something minor and escalate quickly to character assassination. She doesn't just say you forgot to do something, she says it proves you don't respect her. She doesn't just express frustration about a specific behavior, she makes sweeping statements about your entire personality. She brings up old issues that you thought were resolved, using them as evidence of patterns of behavior. She seems almost energized by the conflict, like it confirms something she already believed. The resolution, when it comes, feels temporary and superficial. You apologize or make changes, but you can sense that she's not really satisfied, that she's just waiting for the next opportunity to be upset. These arguments serve another crucial psychological function. They create emotional distance that makes it easier for her to justify seeking emotional connection elsewhere. Every fight reinforces her narrative that you two are incompatible, that your relationship lacks the understanding and harmony she needs. This is particularly dangerous because it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more she picks fights, the more tension exists in your relationship. The more tension exists, the more attractive other relationships or possibilities become by comparison. She's unconsciously sabotaging your relationship to justify her emotional investment elsewhere. The timing of these conflicts is also telling. They often happen when she's been particularly happy or engaged with someone else, or when she's feeling guilty about her shifting emotional loyalties. The fight serves as a way to rebalance her internal sense of justice. If she can be angry at you for legitimate reasons, then her emotional distance feels justified rather than unfair. For men experiencing this, it's one of the most frustrating and confusing aspects of a deteriorating relationship. You find yourself constantly defending against accusations that feel exaggerated or unfair. You're always apologizing for things that don't seem proportionate to her reaction. You start walking on eggshells, trying to avoid triggering the next explosive argument. But here's what you need to understand. These fights aren't really about the dishes, the tone of voice, or whatever specific trigger she's using. They're about her internal need to justify a decision she's already making emotionally, even if she hasn't acknowledged it consciously yet. Sign 4, she stops getting jealous, even when she should. This final sign is perhaps the most counterintuitive and the most devastating. Most men would think that a woman becoming less jealous is a positive development, a sign of increased trust and security in the relationship. But in the context of the other signs we've discussed, it's actually the most ominous indicator of all. She used to notice when attractive women paid attention to you. She used to ask questions about female co-workers or friends. She used to care about how you presented yourself when going out, whether you looked good, whether other women might find you appealing. Now, you could flirt openly in front of her and she'd barely react. This isn't evolved, secure love. This is emotional detachment masquerading as maturity. When a woman stops feeling protective or possessive of your attention, it's usually because she's no longer emotionally invested enough to care where that attention goes. The psychology behind this is straightforward. We protect what we value. When we're deeply invested in something, a relationship, a project, a goal, we naturally guard it against threats. We pay attention to potential problems. We take action to preserve what matters to us. A woman who is fully emotionally invested in her relationship will maintain some level of healthy jealousy or protective instinct. She won't be paranoid or controlling, but she'll care about your interactions with other women. She'll want to know about your social activities. She'll have opinions about how you spend your time and with whom. When this protective instinct disappears entirely, it signals that her emotional investment has been redirected. She's not guarding your relationship because she's no longer fully committed to it. Her attention, her emotional energy, her sense of partnership, it's all been allocated elsewhere. When a woman stops fighting for the relationship, stops protecting what you have together, she's already replaced it in her heart. The specific behaviors that indicate this emotional detachment are subtle but unmistakable once you know what to look for. She becomes indifferent to your social media activity, even when other women comment on your posts. She doesn't ask about your plans or who you'll be with. She encourages you to spend time away from her, almost seeming relieved when you make independent social plans. When obvious situations arise that would typically trigger some jealousy, an ex-girlfriend texting you, a female coworker being overly friendly, attractive women showing interest in you, she either doesn't notice or doesn't care. Her response is neutral to the point of seeming unnatural. This indifference extends beyond jealousy to a general lack of curiosity about your life and activities. She doesn't ask detailed questions about your day, your thoughts, your plans, or your experiences. It's not that she's angry or sulking, she's simply not engaged enough to be curious. The most telling aspect of this sign is how it contrasts with her behavior in the early stages of your relationship. Think back to when you first got together. She was interested in everything about you. She wanted to know your history, your preferences, your daily experiences. She paid attention to other women around you, not out of insecurity, but out of natural interest in protecting something that mattered to her. The cruel irony is that this indifference often comes after periods where men have complained about their partner's jealousy or possessiveness. They wanted her to trust them more, to give them more freedom, to stop questioning their interactions with other women. But when that trust becomes complete indifference, they realize they've lost something essential. What makes these 4 signs so dangerous is how they build on each other in a logical psychological progression. It's not random that they appear in this order. Each stage creates the conditions for the next one. The woman exhibiting all 4 signs simultaneously isn't necessarily a bad person or a natural cheater. She's someone who has followed a psychological path that began with unmet emotional needs and led to the gradual dismantling of her investment in the relationship. Understanding this process doesn't excuse the behavior, but it does explain it. The most heartbreaking aspect of this progression is how preventable it often is in the early stages. If emotional withdrawal is recognized and addressed quickly, if communication is restored and emotional needs are met, the relationship can often be saved. But most couples don't recognize the signs early enough, and by the time the problems become obvious, the psychological damage is often irreversible. If you're seeing 1 or 2 of these signs, it might be worth having honest conversations about the state of your relationship. Couples counseling, increased communication, and genuine efforts to reconnect can often resolve the underlying issues before they become irreversible. But if you're seeing all 4 signs simultaneously, and they've been present for months, you need to prepare yourself for the possibility that the relationship may already be over in everything but name. At that point, you're not fighting to save your relationship. You're fighting to keep someone who has already left you emotionally. The hardest truth I can share with you is this: a woman who has completed this psychological progression will often stay in the relationship for practical reasons: shared finances, children, social expectations, fear of change, while being emotionally and sometimes physically unfaithful. You deserve better than being someone's comfortable fallback option. Before you go, I need you to do something important. If this video opened your eyes or helped you understand something about your relationship, hit that like button right now. It helps other men find this crucial information. And drop a comment below telling me what city you're watching from. I want to know where men around the world are recognizing these patterns. Knowing these signs exists gives you the ability to either save your relationship or save yourself from wasting years on someone who's already gone. Either outcome is better than living in denial.